Hey, what's going on, guys? Biz here once again. So, before the video starts off, I just want to say thank you very much. We're rapidly approaching 2K subs. It's pretty hype, so I'm excited for that. Thank you very much to you guys. Glad you guys are enjoying the content, and I do read all the comments, so thanks for the constructive criticism and stuff you guys always leave down there. Anyway, this video is going to be about kind of like my thoughts on 3.19. I didn't really make a video for the manifesto because I wasn't home when the manifesto came out. I was sick in like halfway across the world with COVID. So I didn't make a video for that, but I'm kind of happy that I sat on all the changes and got to watch everything kind of happen because more stuff just keeps unfolding. Even today, I procrastinated making this video, just doing like A5 runs, practice runs on my league starter. And in that span of time, more drama happened, and man, it's a little silly, I gotta say. So I'm gonna split this like thought piece up, my impressions on 3.19 into two separate parts. One's gonna be fairly positive and one's gonna be fairly negative. You could probably guess when I explain the two sections which is gonna be which. So I have one part that's kind of talking about the character and the balance changes to player power. And the other section is just general game changes. So yeah, we're going to start with the negative stuff, which, if you could probably guess, is the character balance changes. So on my notes over here on my other monitor, I just have a bunch of question marks to start off because there were a lot of, I just have this looping, by the way, so ignore that screen. There were a lot of kind of like promises made on previous Bay class and things said by Chris, that kind of went unfulfilled, to be completely honest. There were a lot of things said about balance and like, yeah, we're not doing anything this league. And a lot of you who have been following me for at least as of 3 months ago will know that I was very critical of the no balance changes in 3.18 because they weren't honest with us, to be frank. Like, they tried to pitch a lack of features as a feature. Like, they're like, hey, we didn't do anything on this, and then they tried to sell it to us like they were doing us a favor or that it was planned or whatever, when really they were just like, they just didn't do any work on it. They didn't do any balance changes, and then they tried to sell it to us as like a perk, when the biggest thing they could have done to appease the general player base is not nerf the shit out of Omni and Ashes, which they did. And I might also add on that front, the whole reason they made them incredibly rare. Okay, I'm playing like 500 plus hours a league at like a very, very efficient pace. Like, I play a lot more and a lot faster than 99.9% of the player base, right? And I saw in SSF, I saw 3 of those amulets total across the whole league. Granted, I didn't focus farm it. I didn't have a Exarch or a Eater, like a boss rush atlas for very long. I only did boss rush strat for a few days, and I did get an Omni from that. But outside of that, I wasn't doing that the full league or anything, so I could have had more amulets if I did that. But that's not the point. I played way more than most people will, way faster than most people will, and I saw 3 of them, right? And then the whole idea behind that change was, hey, well, we're going to make them really rare so we don't nerf them into the ground. And then they nerfed it anyway. So, well, they nerfed one. Honestly, Ashes is giga buffed this league, considering all the changes to mana reservation and stuff. Ashes is actually even stronger than it was before. But yeah, Omni being nerfed is kind of weird. So there were, I would say, like, probably 2 big outliers for Omni. And outside of like those 2 massive outliers with Omniscience, all Omniscience really did was take a bunch of really dog shit skills and make them playable. Like, no one's playing Wild Strike or Smite or Winter Orb otherwise. Maybe if you're like a super softcore trade juicer, maybe you are playing Winter Orb, but like the vast majority of the player base, especially in like hardcore SSF, is not playing any of this stuff, right? And Omni just made them playable. So kind of a weird change in my honest opinion. Omni was very much a band-aid for a lot of very bad skills, but it was a band-aid for a lot of very bad skills that otherwise you just couldn't play. So I don't see the problem with it. Moving on from that, the Fortify change, honestly, it's welcome, but still a meme. They needed to do more. Straight up, they needed to do more about it. They didn't. Kind of sucks. I laughed out loud when I was sitting alone in my quarantine room when I was reading the manifesto and I saw that they changed the fortify duration from 5 seconds to 6 seconds. That's a fat meme. Hopefully now, at the very least, we'll actually be able to get fortify consistently, especially with some of the rare changes, which I'll get over, I'll go over later. But fortify still sucks, especially compared to what it was before they reworked it. But hopefully this makes it just at least consistent. Or more consistent than it was. Moving on, actually a kind of positive one here. Sunder was a decent change. Sunder was actually pretty good, to be honest. Very excited to play that. Looking forward to that one a lot, as you guys can probably tell. Another one, Soul Rend, stood out to me as being pretty good. There's a lot of cool stuff I think you can do with Soul Rend. I'm gonna make a video talking about the build diaries I'm gonna do, but I plan to do Soul Rend Trickster as one of them. So Soul Rend got a pretty good damage buff. And then one thing that's really cool, unless I'm misunderstanding the mechanics, is you can go Soul Rend with Trickster. You can take the ES Leech node, and then you can go into Ghost Reaver. And what Ghost Reaver does is it's like Vault Pack for ES, which is not as good because ES Leech is half of what life is. So taking Ghost Reaver, which is the Vault Pack version of ES Leech, that makes taking that node makes your leech as good as base life leech. So it's not nearly as good as like Vault Pact on a Slayer, but you can take that, and what that does is it locks you out of life leech. But with Soul Rend, obviously you can't use Blight because the dot duration is like 0.6 seconds without scaling duration. With scaling duration, it's almost 1 second. So you can play Soul Rend and then use it with Essence Drain. And Essence Drain, if you don't know, it regens a crazy amount of life when something is under the damage over time effect of Essence Drain, right? So while it's affecting a monster, you don't leech life from them. You regenerate a percentage of the damage it's dealing, or a percentage of your max life while it's on something, I believe is how Essence Drain works. So you'd be able to take Ghost Reaver and get good leech from Soul Rend because it does do hit damage. And you shouldn't need that much hit damage to begin with, because again, the base ES leech values are so low to begin with that you could actually take Ghost Reaver with no actual downside, because your Essence Drain doesn't leech, it just regens life when it's on something. So you would have really good ES regen and life regen at the same time. So it just sounds cool and fun to play around with, if that's actually how it ends up working, which is very cool. And then I have here, everything else was a fat meme. Yeah, the balance changes are garbage. How many times are they gonna buff Reeve by like 12% added damage effectiveness or something? Or man, it's just, Chris said in last Bay Class 3.18, everyone is like in the Q&A with Ziggy, everyone's like super disappointed, like, dude, no balance changes again? And he goes, we're working on it. 3.19, that's gonna be the huge balance changes. We got new skill gems, we're gonna have a bunch of balance changes, the meta's gonna shift. And then how many streamers have you guys seen planning their Seismic POBs? Yeah, Seismic got nerfed. And then the funniest thing was the Seismic did get nerfed by like, I don't know, like 20+% over the course of an entire boss fight with the cooldown changes. But that still makes it the best skill in the game. And then when everybody said that, they nerfed it, the damage just straight up by like 30%. And then it's still one of the strongest skills in the game, because then they also nerfed everything else in the game by like 20+% because they took away an aura from everybody. So it's like, and then they also put in Ming's Heart into the game, which you can work around. And then other things, like they just, which buffs Seismic back up again if you decide to path into that, especially in softcore. It's like, why? Anyway, yeah, I have forgetting to nerf Seismic and then panic nerfing it was kind of cringe, honestly. It's been so many leagues in a row where all of these changes, especially when it comes to skill balance, gem balance, character balance in general, just kind of has me scratching my head. And it's like, how do you fumble so consistently so many times in a row? It really sucks, you know, it really, really sucks. Now we're going to move on to the Lightning Conduit drama. So Lightning Conduit came out, and everyone's like, wow, That looks incredibly strong. That looks very, very good. It does insane damage. And then GG was like, hey, we realize that this skill doesn't look good. We're going to buff the shit out of it. It's buff. Now you guys will play it on League Start, right? And then everyone was like, wow, that skill was already OP as fuck. And then they buffed the shit out of it. That's going to be even more OP as fuck. And then I think it was later the same day. Was that all in the course of today? My sleep schedule's so messed up right now. Either way, they immediately then put out a tweet and we're like, hey, actually, we're nerfing the gem, and we're not nerfing it back to its original reveal value. We're nerfing it past that. So now it's weaker than it was at the initial reveal. So they teased this gem, revealed this gem, gave us the level 20 version, then buffed it a shit ton, and then nerfed it past the original values pre-buff. And then I saw the funniest thing, someone put in my Discord, someone tweeted, Lightning Conduit, before its release, has seen more balance changes that Melee has in the last 2.5 years, which I thought was a fat, like, yeah, true. So yeah, balance changes all over the place. Sunder looks hype. Soul Run looks kind of fun. It's not anything crazy, but it's some new toys to play with. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be really fun. I've tested Sunder a lot. It's going to be really fun. I took a character to mid-90s on a test run for League Start. It was completely fine. It was honestly very playable. Like, it felt completely fine. Pre-buff. So, post-buff, 3.19. It's going to be a super blast to play. Very much looking forward to it. So, that's most of the negative stuff out of the way, except for one small thing. We're going to move on to the second impressions now, which are the overall game changes and the league mechanic and stuff like that. The stuff you're seeing on screen. I'll get the more negative thing out of the way first. The Exalt to Divine change was a massive, absolutely massive nerf to SSF players. So a lot of people have asked me before, especially in the Bone Shatter build diary, how I crafted that like 1100 PDPS pile driver, stuff like that. And it was a lot of meta modding, right? A lot of meta modding. And for like higher end like HESSF players, like racers who play a lot and utilize more efficient strategies, you can farm a lot of Exalts a day. Like, it's very reasonable, especially in modern PoE. I think like gone are the days of like, oh hey, like we're a month into the league and I've dropped like 3 or 4 X, right? That's not a thing anymore, especially with the new Atlas tree. Anyone realistically, like anybody in SSF, I mean, you could do this in trade too. It's gonna be more common strats in SSF. Can like very easily like farm Exalts if they just like utilize the strategies and are relatively efficient with their mapping, right? So yeah, like you farm like freaking, I don't know, like 5 to 8x a day if you're doing really long play sessions and being efficient, and it's not that crazy. Divines are a completely different story. Divines are insane, and now that 6-link, this would be not that bad, and in some ways might even been a buff if they didn't take away the 6-link vendor recipe, because you could just run corrupted strong boxes, spec for strong boxes on your Atlas tree, and the game just like rains corrupted 6-links that are absolutely trash, by the way. Baited on Discord, sorry. Absolute trash, but you vendor them for divine orbs. Well, that's gone. So now how the hell do we get divines? Also, you know, they've taken the ability to just actually divine items like out of the game pretty much in totality. We have yet to see if they've taken it away from Harvest, but they've taken away from everything else. So it's looking pretty likely that they're taking it from Harvest as well, which kind of sucks also for SSF especially. Yeah, so meta modding in SSF is kind of looking gone for the most part. Even cannot roll caster mods used to cost blessed orbs or whatever it was, and now that also costs divines. So yeah, they didn't pull their punches there. It's a massive nerf to SSF. I know a lot of trade players are crying because they're like, oh, now it costs 300 chaos for 1 divine. Well, it's like, at least you can buy it, right? Like, I can farm 300 chaos in a trade league pretty quickly. I can't just pull divines out of my ass with no way to target farm them at all. There's like the Sephiroth card or whatever, but that's like incredibly rare. Like, that like I've never tried focus farming it, but I get like 1 or 2 of those a league, you know, like, and I play a lot of PoE, right? Like, I don't think that's gonna be a consistent way to farm divines at all. So probably a lot of people gonna be making divine div cards next league. And it sucks that we're just gonna have a league of pure pain champ. Anyway, moving on from there, harvest rework. This is a bittersweet one. I think it's definitely getting nerfed. Like, it's absolutely getting nerfed, especially for like the racing meta. It's a massive nerf. However, I think for like general players and casual players, fill in the blank for what casual means as you will, but for the general player base, I think the harvest changes are good. I think from a gameplay perspective, that the harvest changes combined with the rare changes are a massive buff to gameplay quality of life. Harvest is basically mandatory if you care about being even remotely efficient or having decent gear in SSF, especially if you're a racer, but in any sort of event. But it's never been remotely fun to interact with. It's been very unhealthy for the game in terms of a gameplay and game enjoyment perspective. So while this is a change that does nerf us, I think general players will actually start interacting with harvest more because it will be less cancerous to interact with, and it's more understandable and more approachable for lesser experienced players or more casual players, because you can just say, hey, I'll go in the garden, I kill some monsters, and I can save up to get a specific craft that I want. If I'm using a fizz weapon, well, I can go for the fizz crafts. You know, it's like very easy to understand. You don't need to know ahead of time, oh, I got chaos crafts here, I can use that on this and this while I'm crafting this on these bases that I have in my stash, and preparing other stuff. Like, it's again, it's bad for SSF. Realistically, it's really bad for racers, but for everybody else and just for everyone in general, the gameplay changes are very nice, and it is a buff to quality of life, even if it is a nerf to power. So it's a little bit bittersweet. Overall, I'm honestly okay with it because just harvest has been a pain in the ass forever. And with the new Atlas tree and with buffed essences, you do have alternatives. I think what we're going to see moving to 3.19 is a lot more, and what I plan to do is a lot less from the racer side or the like HSSF streamer side, is a lot less focus on harvest specifically with what we currently know, and a lot more focus on just essences. I did hear Ben talking about focusing a lot on June and Ashling hitting to craft stuff and whatnot, but we'll see. Essences are definitely getting buffed by this change, so that's one thing to keep in mind. Moving on from there, I have the Beyond a Scourge change. This is going to hurt the softcore trade juicers a lot more than anybody else. This change for me is, I'm fine with it. I've never really liked Beyond. I know a lot, that's probably gonna piss a lot of people off, but personally for me, I don't know, I'm lukewarm on Beyond. I didn't like it. A lot of CB that gets put on you, which is annoying. Honestly, when Beyond is on my maps, I don't find it rippy at all, to be honest, but I do really hate having to stand there and wait for things to spawn. I hate that delay. It is worth it, and when you're running super juice content and like software trade, there's just so much stuff, monsters all over the place, and you're like off screening, and you know, with like tornado shot and like crazy fast clear stuff like lightning strike, and there's just monsters everywhere all the time and you don't notice it as much. But when you're juicing way less and like HSSF and like you can't go crazy with all those mods and stuff, I'm like running through a map and then it's like, okay, well, it would be dumb for me to just run through this and then not let them spawn and then kill, you know what I mean? Like it felt a little clunky and awkward for the game mode that I play, and I just personally, I have never been a huge fan of Beyond, so I'm okay with this change. I don't really care because I'm not gonna like spec Scourge on my tree. I don't know if it's worth it at all, to be honest, because Scourge can be some of those monsters are a little bit overtuned still, and then on top of that, you got to think the fusings will be back, but they're really rare, and they also said they've nerfed it, well, adjusted it, so they've nerfed the shit out of it, right? So like, really, is it worth going for? We'll have to see. I mean, I don't really want to go back to corrupting my, you know, chess pieces and hope I don't brick them, especially with how hard you know, crafting is going to be in the next patch, because you're going to need full tier 1 stuff and you don't have access to meta mods or divines anymore. So yeah, I may not be willing to just YOLO vol a chess piece until I have 2 of them, and then even then, you know, who knows how good corrupting fusings are, but you know, that's something we'll just have to wait and see. Soft or not software, but trade players will know, you know, the math behind that like way before like I have to really interact with it or deal with it. So other people will know, and will, you know, other people will test that, right? So we don't really have to worry too much about that. So thank you, trade players, for doing the dirty work there. The Arch Nem and the rare changes. This looks on paper like a huge pro. We'll have to see though. I am skeptical about them increasing the mods and the strength of the rare monsters overall. They're definitely, I do agree that they're definitely should be less rare monsters in the game. Arch Nem on release was a complete joke balance wise. Like, it was absolutely ludicrous in hardcore. Not just because of the mods and how stupid they were, but because of the just ridiculous density of rare monsters. It was like laughable. Like, I felt like there were more yellow monsters in my map than just white trash mobs. Like, it was ridiculous. And they have since reduced the frequency of them, but them reducing the frequency more, and then this is cool too, them, like, the monsters will be harder, but they will drop more loot. I still think a lot of the mods, the Arch Nem mods, are just stupid, and like, even if they're not necessarily OP from like a balance point of view, even some of the mods that are like more tame, they are just like straight annoying to deal with, and I think like detract from gameplay enjoyment. That's not like a me crying and get good thing. It's like it's like objectively not fun to interact with, and I find myself doing like a heavy sigh when I run into those monster packs, right? So that kind of sucks. Lastly, moving on to the Kalandra League, the Mirror of Kalandra League, right? Or Lake of Kalandra League. It looks okay. I mean, I don't really have a lot of opinions on this one. It could be cool. It may be lame. It doesn't look incredibly rippy yet. The one thing that I really hate is the very ambiguous difficulty ramping. Difficulty going from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. I don't know what that means. Am I taking 10% increased damage every difficulty level? Are monsters taking 10% less damage? Is it 1%? You know, like, it's so ambiguous. This is kind of like the empowerment stat on Sentinels. I wish they would tell us what it means, because like, from a hardcore perspective, the only way for me to like kind of understand or limit test that is to just fucking die trying to interact with the league mechanic, and that just I've never liked that. That always feels kind of lame. So I will do what I typically do, and I will interact with this once or twice on day 1, and if it feels ridiculous or buggy or overtuned, then I will just not interact with it and then wait for the hot fixes that will inevitably come by day 3 or 4, right? That's the way of things. That is the PoE we play for quite a while. Anyway, that was all the notes I had. Yeah, let me know what you guys are thinking. Overall, to sum it up, a lot of the overall game changes look very positive. It looks like it's going to make PoE more interesting to play. At the very least, more interesting. You know, on the higher end of things, maybe just like more fun. Some of the changes look really good. Some of the changes are a little eh. When it comes to character balance and stuff like that, honestly, it's a massive joke. I can't think of any other way to even describe it. It is laughable that it has been... The last new skill we got that was actually a usable skill was Poison's Concoction, and that is, at the end of this league, a year old, right? Like, and then we finally get some new skill gems, and they're like weird, for the most part, like weird, funky, like ailment things, and then the mark doesn't really make sense either, because there's no way for you to really utilize it because of the way it works. And then it also replaces your curse, so there's no reason you would ever use it anyway, because it's not going to give you more damage. You know what I mean? Like, it makes literally no sense. The one decent one that was there was like the Galvanic Field being paired with Lightning Conduit, but then like we already went over the Lightning Conduit stuff. So just character balance, I just don't even get me started. It's a fucking joke currently, and honestly, GGG should be ashamed for what it is currently. I think they just don't want to put a lot of work into it, because the whole PoE 2 will fix everything mentality, I guess. I don't know. It was my jaw kind of dropped when Ziggy asked Chris in the Q&A about Melee, and Chris chuckled and then said, Melee is going to be really fun in PoE too. Like, okay, what the fuck am I doing for the next 2 years, Chris? Help. So that was a pretty big red flag, but yeah. I mean, you guys know how it is. Anyway, yeah, that was the TLDR, I guess, to sum it all up. Anyway, I appreciate you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments if you made it this far. There are other videos coming. I have a video coming out detailing the build diaries that I'm planning for the league tomorrow. And then after that, Thursday will be a starter, just a list of like potential league starters you could do. And then a few meta ones maybe. And then also on Thursday, keep an eye out. That will be the Sunder video where I'll give you guys the POB, the changes that have happened, and then answer a bunch of questions I've seen popped up. So yeah, that's everything, I believe. Thanks a bunch for watching the video. Typical support stuff. If you liked the video, leave me a thumbs up. If you didn't, leave me a thumbs down. Like, subscribe, share the video. I appreciate it if you share the video. And then Twitch is around here, and also Twitter and the Discord if you want to interact with me on other mediums. Anyway, peace. I'll see you guys in the next one tomorrow. Have a good one. Stay safe.